God will sometimes take you to the small things to bring you into the greater things. So sometimes it doesn't look like the step that God is giving you, the direction that God tells you to take. Sometimes it doesn't look like it's going to make sense. Sometimes it doesn't look like the exact thing that God had promised you. But God will lead you through one door and take you to another door. And then that door is going to take you to another door. And then eventually you're going to end up in your promised land. Eventually you're going to be standing in front of what God has promised you, but he's waiting on you to take the small step. He's waiting on you to take the step in the right direction, because as soon as you be obedient, as soon as you decide that you're going to take the step, even though it doesn't make sense, even though the people around you are telling you it doesn't make sense, you decided to still be obedient and take that step and follow God. Just like Joseph, he was sold into slavery by his brothers, and then he was put captive in jail. But guess what? While Joseph was in jail, he was still working the assignment. He was still working the purpose. And you got to remember to stay focused on the assignment. Stay focused on what God has called you to, because there's an assignment in the small things. See, your mind is focused on the big picture. Your mind is focused on the big things. But you got to remember that God sent you to that job. God moved you to another state. God told you to let that person go because there was purpose in the small things. And if God can see you being a good steward over the little things, if he can see you honoring and being obedient over the small steps, how much more will he give you? Because you don't realize it's the small steps that lead to the big things. It's the small steps that you take that lead you to the big promised land. The things that you have been praying for is once you go through the small door, it's going to lead you to another door, another door. But you got to take the step, and you're afraid to take the step because you need all the answers. But you got to know how to move without the answers. You just got to know if God called you to it, he's going to pull you through it. So if God told you to go in that direction, if God told you to go to that job, if God told you to move to another city, then you just do it, even though it doesn't make sense, because you got to know that there's purpose in it. You got to know that the small things is going to lead to the big promise. You got to focus on the small promise, the small assignments. It's going to lead to the big things. But you're so ready to get all the big things, and you're not even prepared in the small things. You're not obedient and disciplined in the small things. How can you expect God to give you the big things? How can you expect to be a good steward over the greater things that God has for you when you're not being a good steward over the little things that he has given you already?